In this video, we're going to be covering centeredness of contact and a couple reasons why we believe it's the #1 fundamental and one of the most important skills to develop. So whenever we're looking at high-level players and elite ball strikers, those players are going to have really two things in common. And #1, they're going to be finding the club face, they're going to be finding the center of the face, and also the frequency in which they find the center of the face. And those players, when they do deviate off the center, they're really not straying too far, left and right or high and low. And most of those players, when they do deviate from the center of the face and they're not hitting it quite as well, we're going to see some type of distinction, some type of pattern, and usually it's known by these players as well, of a bias one way or the other as far as toe to heel goes. So it's not uncommon for everyone to have some type of tendency or bias one way towards the toe or towards the heel. And there's usually, when we've studied this, there's usually no exact reason linked to why someone would hit it in the toe or in the heel, other than just how our eyes consume, how our eyes take things in, and how our mind kind of perceives the world around us. Some of us just have this perception of when we get into delivery, we just tend to swing the toe more at the ball or the heel. And it really has nothing to do with any positional things. It's just more of how our mind believes we need to deliver the club and the perception of what we believe impact should be like. And that has a heavy influence on other elements in our swing, but especially whenever we're talking about impact location. Our first step to creating more centered contact is first being able to identify where we're currently hitting it at. So if you don't currently know where your strike points tend to be, and if you're unaware that you might have a distinction or a bias one way or the other, the simplest thing we can do is to employ some type of tactic to help reveal and help us see exactly where we're hitting it at. So one of the easier ways to do it is to grab a can of some Dr. Scholl's powdered spray here. And this is probably not anything that's super rare to see, and this is a commonly known tool within the golf world now. It's easily accessible, comes off easily. It's a great tool to have in your bag, especially whenever we're looking at contact points. So we're just going to put a light coat and put a nice display of that on there. So now we have a way to actually track when we strike the ball and see exactly where we're hitting it at in the face. So I already know my tendency. As long as I can remember, my tendency has always been to strike the ball more towards the toe if I'm not hitting it on the center. Very rarely I will occasionally hit some in the heel, but my bias is strongly in towards the toe, especially when I'm in one of those phases where I'm just not quite hitting it as well. So when we take this information in and we understand where our biases are, toe side, heel side, we want to be proactive about it. It's not so much of just, I've hit that one in the toe, okay, that's what my habit is. I hit that one in the heel, that's what my habit is, and just leaving it at that. We want to be proactive in taking steps towards working the centeredness of contact back towards the middle of the face. We're susceptible to some wayward shots, obviously, the more off center we get, because we have some gear effect that plays a role into it. So finding the center of the face is going to help us self-assess our last shot that we hit a little bit more accurately. If we've left the face open and the ball went more to the right, but we were confident that we hit the ball in the center, then we can quickly identify that, where we can come in and have a pretty square face, hit the ball in the heel, and get a similar shot from a directional standpoint, ball traveling right. But if we're not aware that we struck that one in the heel, we might kind of be chasing ghosts in our golf swing and trying to fix something that doesn't necessarily need to be fixed, rather than just having the focus and intent on trying to hit it perhaps on a different side of the face once you understand where your certain tendency is. So now that I've got this coat sprayed on here, I'm going to go ahead and hit one. And again, this would be good to just, step one, kind of identify where the pattern currently is. Okay, so that one was pretty center, slightly towards the toe a bit there, which is, again, that's not necessarily a shock to me. If I'm even mainly on the center with the strike of it, it's always going to be favoring slightly toe side for me. So next we're going to be discussing some tactics and some proactive ways you can do to better train each of these biases. So the first setup that we have is we're just going to use a golf tee, and we're going to use more of the focus and intent side of things to gravitate this back towards the center of the face. So I'm going to use my example. My bias is always towards the toe. This works both sides. You can just put it on the opposing side if you recognize that your pattern is a little bit more heel bias. So my tendency is towards the toe. So I'm actually going to take a tee, and I'm going to put it just on the outside edge of the golf balls. All this tee is doing is serving as a different focal point. So I know that without the tee there, focusing on the golf ball more, I'm going to have this tendency to arrive more. If it's not on center, it's going to be favoring a little bit towards the toe. So we can also spray our club again for this tactic. Put a light coat on there. And now I'm going to be focusing a little bit more and having this intent on delivering the center of the face more on that tee. So now when I strike it, I should see more of where the tee actually shows up. And I can also see, just like before, I can see where the golf ball shows up on the face as well. So using the tee, the focus is mainly more on using that tee as a specific target to swing the center of the face towards. The other tactic would be more of an avoidance tactic. So for that, it's going to be the other side, because we're going to have different responders. Some people are going to gravitate more towards deliberately focusing on a different location, like what we just did with the tee drill, or we could do something, again, using an avoidance tactic to where we have something more in our way. So for this, we're going to put the stick just a little bit on the outside part, or on the inside part of the club, just enough room to where I can make a swing and successfully hit the center of the face, but not hit the stick. So in the event I come in, I'm favoring more the toe side, I'll have feedback. I would have hit the stick at that point. So again, we're after the same goal here, centerness of contact. We're just using a different tactic to help us get there a little bit. So we're going to hit one with an alignment stick, for me just on the inside part, again trying to work the contact point out of the toe and more into the center. So to recap, we believe centerness of contact is by far the #1 fundamental. It's one of the non-negotiables whenever we're looking at a high-level player or any elite ball striker. They're all going to have these characteristics in common. Sure, they all might have some biases and they might have some different tactics that they employ to help them find the center. But regardless of what those tactics and regardless of what those tendencies are, those players are going to have that really enhanced skill of finding the center of the face and finding the center of the face frequently. This is why they're able to self-assess more accurately. They're getting a better understanding of where the club face is pointed and certain things of that. They're avoiding some wayward shots because of the side to side and up and down gear effect that we could experience. So there's just a laundry list of benefits from being able to find the center of the face more often. And with these tactics that we've talked about, being able to first identify it, secondly, just understanding your tendency and understanding that most players are going to have a bias and there's nothing wrong with that bias. And third, actually just understanding how we can manage those biases and understanding that if we do have a day where it's off the center and it's towards one side or the other, what do those misses look like, and what can we do with those misses to better strategize on the course, and what are some of the focuses that we can do to help get back on track and find the center of the face more. But first, being able to kind of go through that process and develop a plan and now being proactive about it. You know, we have these drills with the alignment stick, we have a drill with the golf tee there, to where we're actively shifting the focuses and trying to find the center of the face. Instead of just hoping that it happens, we're actively chasing centerness of contact, thus improving our ball striking.